game 8, there's money on the line in the playoff race. Matched up against a chump, going head to head like Biden and Trump.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is the People's Podcast. Wow. Can't speak right now. It's 6:52 a.m., Thursday morning of week 9. This is obviously the week 8 recap. Weaver, the founder, the originator, the co-host, the champion-elect, champion-to-be, perhaps, is still somewhere in the middle of Texas. So again, this will be a Collin-only podcast. Try and breathe a little more this time. And yeah, so just to dive right into it, this podcast is a little bit delayed. Obviously Tuesday nights when we usually record this thing, but there is kind of a big deal going on in the U.S. with the election. So I was distracted then. Wednesday nights now are for Dungeons and Dragons. So now I'm doing this Thursday morning to get it out today before this week starts in earnest. Just recapping the weekend for me. So, as you know, I was on the East Coast. I actually spent last weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in Boston. It was really cool because driving down from New Hampshire to Boston on Friday, and it was snowing, legit snowstorm. Nothing too crazy, but crazy enough to where it had been snowing all night. Snow covered everything. The roads were slick. We actually drove on the highway, obviously, from New Hampshire to Boston. We had to go like 50 miles an hour, and we legit saw some woman hydroplaning, doing 360s on the freeway. She didn't hit anybody or anything, but still is crazy to see. But eventually made it to Boston. We stayed in this really cool Airbnb close to downtown, basically within walking distance of the downtown area. And it was still snowing, so it was really cool to get those East Coast vibes, brick buildings, the snow like I was mentioning. So it was really cool. Worked Friday from the Airbnb and basically just started drinking. Saturday was Halloween. Chelsea and I were wearing onesies from How to Train Your Dragon, amazing movie. Actually, specifically from the third one, I was wearing a toothless onesie, and she was wearing a light fury. So obviously super cute. We actually walked so much. We walked around Boston. We walked to the waterfront. We walked to different markets. Actually went through a few cemeteries. Kind of strange, but also kind of interesting. These are super old, like hundreds of years back. So that was cool to see some history. I actually saw the grave of Elizabeth Payne. You can look this up. It is said that she was the inspiration for Hester Prynne, I think her name was, in Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter. And they think that because on her gravestone there's a big embellished A. So that's the rumor. Saw that gravestone amongst others, so that was pretty cool. But also on that weekend, on that Saturday, I drank far too much. It was an annoying, frustrating drunk at the end of the night. But along the way, we got to finish the bet that I had with Evan, where we bet on our matchup. The loser has to take a shot of water and a shot of clear liquor back to back, and have the league vote on it. And then if the league guessed correctly, that person would additionally shotgun. So you guys guessed correctly. The water was the first one. The shot was the second one. And so I shotgunned that White Claw, which upon reviewing of the video took me longer than I would have liked. I think that's the first claw that I actually shotgunned. But definitely something I can see myself doing again in the future. So that was fun. I'd love to see some other matchups replicate that maybe this weekend or in the future, because it's cool to get the whole league involved, and I like the discussion. Not sure how I feel about O'Malley lobbying people to change their votes. I think people should just vote on their own, but it was cool to see the discussion in the GroupMe. So this is actually the second sober podcast I'll be doing in a row. The second one where I'm sipping on a piping hot cup of joe instead of opening beer cans and cheersing a co-host. So hopefully we can buck this trend, and next week the creator shall return. Additionally, I'm curious if we'll get a champion pod this week. We didn't see one last week, or hear one, I should say. Did see the champion podcaster host a murder mystery dinner, which looked really fun. I definitely was jealous. I think I've done one of those in my life back in high school. And I imagine they're much different when people are just slamming alcohol. So that's something I'd like to get involved in the future. But the question remains, will the champion podcaster be hosting some kind of cocktail party or event instead of podcasting in this week? But anyway, jumping into the picks from last week, and we'll brush through this because we actually have a nice long segment later that Pebbles is really going to enjoy, the Nightlord Prediction Model. But before we get there, as you all remember, in week 7, I went 0-6, just a truly remarkable feat. Weaver went 4-2, and Stu went 2-4. This week, a little different story. I actually went 5-1. The only matchup I got wrong was my matchup with Weaver. Although some of my predictions did were correct in that one, which we'll touch on in a second. But Weaver went 4-2 with his picks, and Stu didn't submit any picks. Didn't submit any picks on his Phantom podcast, and didn't submit any picks within the Yahoo Fantasy Football platform. So don't know what happened there, but no picks from Stu this week. Although I did see Adam put some in there, so that's cool. Didn't write them down, so I'm not going to go over them. But glad that someone else besides Weaver and I are getting involved in that on the platform. But to brush through them, so first we'll go over the matchup between Weaver and I. Really tough week for Gall. So this is my second week without Mixon and Sanders. Now I know I'm not the only one dealing with injuries. Man, I cannot speak at this time of the morning. Not the only one dealing with injuries on my squad, but was not planning on getting additional injuries during the week. I mean, no one ever is planning on it, but I'm going in the week without Mixon or Sanders, my first 2 picks. Ridley, who has been a godsend, gets injured on Thursday Night Football. I was actually watching Thursday Night Football from a hot tub in the lakeside house in New Hampshire, so at least my pain was a little mitigated by the environment I was in. But not only does Ridley go down, but Henderson also goes down in a game that was supposed to be a really good matchup for him. So my team is just destroyed with injury. Josh Allen has been really bad over the last month, which has contributed to my slide here. And then beyond that, the only other good performances I get are out of Boyd, who he's consistently great, and then Koo. Everybody else is terrible. It's the second week where I've been counting on some Clipper players, Josh Kelly and the LACD, both of which gave me 3 points. So fuck the Clippers. On Weaver's side, Weaver has a good week. It's 131 points. What I predicted actually came true with Elliott, Davis, and Kittle, none of them reaching their projections. Obviously, Kittle got injured. I didn't watch that game, but I heard it was later on in the game, though. You can correct me if I'm wrong, guys. But those 3 guys who Weaver had high projections for, I didn't think they'd meet those point totals, and they did not. However, I did not plan on Metcalf going apeshit. And then Robert Woods, obviously, phenomenal game, too. And then the Pittsburgh defense. The Pittsburgh defense has Lamar Jackson's number. They get a touchdown, 4 sacks, and 2 interceptions. I mean, this is a good all-around week for Weaver, even in a week where he gets less than 2 points from his flex and less than 5 points for Kittle. But Weaver gets the W. Next matchup, which I correctly guessed, Adam gets a second win in a row on a little bit of a heater. Pebbles, rough week. Galladay goes down 0 points. Garoppolo, his fill-in quarterback from Murray, We were talking about, how is Pebbles' team going to respond without Murray and Robinson? Well, Jimmy G gets him sub 2 points. However, Harris, who he throws in there for Robinson, puts up 16, which actually was more than Gurley. So good fill in there, but still Pebbles limps to 89 points. It's tough to do anything really good if your quarterback doesn't perform and you lose your top wide receiver or one of your wide receivers. Pebbles has a pretty strong core there. On Adam's side, 102, so kind of a pedestrian week, but a W is a W. Devontae Adams, again, goes off. God, 3 receiving touchdowns. This is fucking... How many touchdowns does this guy have now? He's got 7 touchdowns, and he's played 5 games. And in 2 of those games, he didn't score. So he has 3 multi-touchdown games. God, what a pick. Josh Jacobs, he's double digits, but does not find the end zone in that crazy game in Cleveland where the wind was a factor. Allen Robinson, the highly contested and debated Allen Robinson, 6 receptions, receiving touchdown, 87 receiving yards. So Adam does just enough to win. Ho-hum game out of Bridgewater and more. Obviously, Adam was hoping for a little bit more out of those 2 against the Atlanta defense on Thursday night. But Jobber Carlson gets him 10, and he gets the W. And Collin got the correct pick. Next matchup, we got Bacon and Stu. Yeah, looking around the league, it was pretty low scoring outside of no one dies like Gaston and brave Sir Dobbins. Everybody else is a ho-hum week. Bacon gets the W over Stu. First place person goes down, and now Bacon has the same win totals as him and Blood Diamond Bill. Tyreek Hill finally has a Tyreek Hill game. There's a few games there where, I guess one game against Buffalo where he didn't do much. Outside of that, he's been spectacular. Henry, touchdown. Hawk and Cock. It's a good tight end game. Same with Tanyan. Bacon goes double tight end and gets the win. Justin Tucker fails to get double-digit points. I wonder if he's nursing something, the weight of that team on his back in the Ravens' loss. On Stu's side, Herbert has another good game, 21 points. Here's a clipper that I wish I had gone harder in the paint for earlier on. I remember the week that Stu picked him up as a flyer, I had him on my watch list. I'm sure I'm not the only one in that respect, but he's been producing like crazy, and I'm sure he'll continue to do so this weekend against the Vegas Raiders. Rager finds the end zone. That's pretty funny, and a 2-point conversion after all that back and forth about putting him in the IR slot or not. Pebbles, great, just commissioner ruling to keep Stu in line after he's debating, or I should say, complaining about the cleanliness of his roster, which he himself had done. But beyond Herbert and Lutz, Stu's kicker, which was a sneaky good pickup a few weeks ago, pretty pedestrian week. Claypool finds the end zone, so that's good. Continues to see those looks. But, yeah, basically Bacon takes the W, and he's put himself into the top of the league, even further so. Next matchup, I got it right. Sorry, Weaver, I haven't even talked about your matchups here. So, Weaver had himself over me, which he got correct. He had Adam over Pebs, which he got correct. He had Bacon over Stu, which he got correct. This next matchup, though, he got wrong. He picked Scott over O'Malley. I picked our boy, No One Fucks Like Gaston, over On My Way to the Shitter. They're both bronze managers still, folks, by the way. Fun fact. O'Malley gets 154. Dalvin Cook has 4 touchdowns, 48 points. Tough to beat that. On top of that, Corey Davis he picked up on the wire after seeing that screenshot from Stu. Those guys just carry his team. But otherwise, solid games from Tannehill and Fulgham. Fulgham also has been a revelation. In the past, let's see, in the past 5 games, he has 4 double-digit point totals and averaging so many targets a game. Yeah, this has been, a revelation for O'Malley's team. And on Scott's side, I mean, Scott still is carrying the corpse of Michael Thomas. Will he play this week? Let's read his blurb. Well, he practiced yesterday. Let's see. Yeah, he might play. Scott might finally get all those receivers on the field together. For his team, Julio Jones is a nice game, especially after Ridley went down. Gronkowski finds the end zone again. Kind of funny how Gronkowski, everyone was saying he was done, he was old, he was washed, and now he's getting a bunch of looks from Brady. It's like Brady just decided not to be cute anymore. Like in the last 4 games, Gronk is averaging around like 7 or over 7 targets and scored touchdowns from 3 games in a row. 0 points out of Aguilar, which is nuts because I remember he was one of the high priority pickups after going 5 catches on 9 targets for 107 yards and a touchdown against the Bucks. Against Cleveland, he puts up 0 points. Obviously, weather was a factor in that one. But yeah, Scott scores 85 points. It's a rough week. But let's see what happens next week when all those receivers are playing together for Scott. But O'Malley takes this one. Next matchup, Brad and Bill. Now, I picked Brad to win and stop the slide. Weaver picked the same. So dive into the matchup. This was a close one, folks. Less than a point separated the victor from the loser. I think it was a kick. Yeah, it was a kick by Suckup in that Monday night game. Wow, so this is fun. Bill is on the receiving end of a Monday Night Miracle and loses by less than a point. Now, for Bill, Lamar Jackson has another pedestrian game. Lamar Jackson great against Philadelphia and great against Washington. It looks like he's kind of alternating games here between doing well and doing not well. I'm curious to see how he does against the Indy D. He's pretty good. Deontay Johnson gets injured again, I think. Doesn't really say anything about his blur, but I remember, let's see. Yep, left the game for half of the first quarter with a hamstring issue. He returned and didn't seem hobbled, but was uninvolved in the Pittsburgh passing attack. That guy cannot catch a break. All Bills receivers just do nothing. Jamal Williams, who was the fill-in running back for Green Bay, has a few nice weeks, but now he's on the COVID list, so his value is shot. DJ Dallas on the Seattle Seahawks. Great pickup, Bill. This is a random rookie running back. Finds the end zone. Same with Gus Edwards. I thought Ingram would be back by now. He has not been. So Edwards actually has been a good pickup for old Bill here. Philadelphia defense gets 22 points for Bill as well. But on Brad's side, actually this whole matchup had the matchup of the terrible receivers. Brad doesn't get more than 3 points from any of his. Rodgers puts up 22. Kamara puts up 20. Kelsey puts up 20. And then, his boys suck up with that Monday Night Miracle kick. Gives Brad the edge and the win over Blood Diamond Bill. Weaver also picked Brad. Last matchup, we have Evan and Max. Now here, this is where Weaver and I had differences in our pick. Evan wins. That's 2 wins in a row for Evan, actually. Beat me last week. This one was not that close either. Good quarterback play from both these guys, Wilson and Mahomes. Wilson has 4 passing touchdowns. Mahomes has 5 passing touchdowns. Hot damn. Mike Evans finds the end zone again for Max. Connor has a nice game. And then Mike Williams. Oh, my God. Every time I look at Max's team, I think of all these receivers that I've kicked to the curb and then have produced for Max. Cooks obviously being the most evident in that. But Mike Williams, I picked him up, played him last week, 0.9 points. Okay, I tossed him aside for S. Miller, our boy S. Miller, thinking that the matchup against the Giants would be good for S. Miller. Well, this past weekend, Mike Williams, all of a sudden, 5 catches, 8 targets, 99 yards, a touchdown, good for 18.5 points. S. Miller, I don't even fucking remember what he scored, like around 5. My receiver luck has not been that good this year, boys. But anyway, Evan's side, Ayuk has a big game with Debo out. Gio Bernard, god damn it, taking all the points that Mixon should be scoring. Good game. But then, basically Evans riding the back of Mahomes here with his 5 passing TDs and 416 passing yards. And the bonus point for the 40-yard passing touchdown. Evan does enough to win. Gall gets the correct pick. Weaver does not. So again, Gall goes 5-1. Weaver goes 4-2. Stu goes question mark because no picks were submitted. We talked about this a little bit on the group me. But the projections this past week, only 2 people met them, O'Malley and Weaver. So 2 of 12 people meeting projections is the lowest week so far of the season. Before that, the season low was 4 people. Kind of expanding on projections a little more, both Evan and Brad have not hit their projections in 5 straight games. I have not met my predictions in 4 straight games. Projections. Max has only hit his projections 1 week of the year, which is the lowest, 1 out of 8 weeks, and Weaver has hit the most. He's hit 6 out of 8 weeks. Little fun fact projection dealio for you there. So I'm going to take a big swig of coffee here, and then we're going to dive into the Nightlord Prediction Model. Okay, so why am I doing this? This goes off of Pebbles' question about who is going to make the playoffs, in my unbiased opinion. Last week, I fumbled over the podcast trying to answer it, realizing I was definitely not prepared. So this week, I wanted to spend some time on the podcast actually diving deep and having some responses, have an answer that was somewhat based in research and fact. So I actually this is also a reason why this podcast is coming out a few days later than it usually does, is I spent way too much time figuring this out. So basically what I did is I looked at all the matchups for the rest of the year. So we have 5 weeks, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 in the regular season. I looked at all the buys and injuries that people have. So obviously injuries are pretty difficult to predict and project because there's a number of people that are injured currently, obviously my team, Mixon and Sanders, Aaron Jones and Chubb on Evan's team, Eckler on Bill's team, just to name a few. And, after you start getting to week 10, week 11, week 12, it's assumed these guys are back. Now, will they be back? I'm not sure. With those assumptions, I went with what Yahoo has. So basically, if they have point totals for that week, that's the week I'm thinking they return. I also took into account the good and bad matchups that Yahoo shows. So if someone has a green matchup because that defense is bad against their position, or if someone has a red matchup because that defense is good against their position, I use that in to factor these decisions. And then the last thing is you can't predict future injuries. So this all could change if, who knows, Calvin Ridley is out for the year for me or something like that. But without further ado, here's how we did it. There's 3 buckets. The buckets are teams that are out, so you're out of the playoff picture, sorry. There's teams who are on the fence who still have a chance to crack into the top 6 in the playoffs or stay into the top 6. And then there are teams who are locked for the playoffs. So at this point in time, in my opinion, plus in this hours of matchup looking at, are locked for the playoffs. So basically, what we're going to do is dive right in. So we'll start with the teams that are out. 2 teams that are out are going to be Max and Scott. Okay, their current records are 1-7 each. That's really rough. Over the next 5 weeks, I have Max winning 3 games, and I have Scott winning 1 game. So in the NLM, Nightlord Prediction Model, Scott's going to finish at 3-10. Scott's going to finish at 2-11. Max is going to finish at 4-9. Those totals are not good enough to get into the playoffs. So something else that I factored into is, and this is seen by the predictions I made before, specifically last week where I went 0-6, for last week, is I gave a plus and minus 1 win differentiator to kind of keep people in these buckets. And that's why I don't want to exactly predict seeding, although I will go over that. But I know that I'm not going to get all these matchups right. So that's why these buckets are nice, because it gives me a little bit of wiggle room. But even with giving Max and Scott an additional win on top of their projected wins that I have, the best they could do is Max would be 5-8, Scott would be 3-10. So those guys are going to be out for the postseason. Next bucket. This bucket is the fence bucket. This is the biggest bucket. It includes 6 teams. So those 6 teams are, starting from the bottom, Evan, Adam, Pebbles, Weave, Brad, and myself, Collin. So basically in this bucket, I'm projecting the win totals are going to be from 7-6 to 6-7, right? So to go down the list, I'm projecting myself to go 7-6 overall, projecting Weave, Brad, Pebbles, and Adam all to go 6-7, and I'm projecting Evan to go 5-8. So in this next bucket, those 6 teams are eligible for the playoffs. Now, how I have it shaking out is I have myself getting in as the 5 seed at 7-6, and then Weaver and Brad would be the ones next up for that 6th spot, because right now their point totals per week are really similar. So they're both below me because I have myself winning 3 times in the next 5 weeks. I have Weaver winning 1 time in the next 5 weeks, and I have Brad winning twice in the next 5 weeks. But again, this whole bucket of people are eligible because with this, I would be the only team to have 7 wins. Adam, Pebbles, Brad, and Weave all would have 6 wins. So everyone's eligible in this bucket for the playoffs. Now, the seedings I actually have it shaking out finally are Collin 5 at 7-6, Weave or Brad, because their point totals are so similar, finishing at 6. Weave or Brad finishing at 7. This is all at 6-7. Pebbles finishing at 8 at 6-7. Adam finishing at 9 at 6-7. Evan finishing at 10 at 5-8. I decided those actual placements based on our weekly point output when the records were the same. So, for instance, Adam's weekly totals is 102. That's why he's the last of the 6 and 7 teams in this model. But even with the plus or minus win totals, all those teams could hop up to 7 or 8 wins, except for Evan, who would be at 6-7, or those teams could drop to 5-8. So because of that, this is the bucket they're on the fence basically. 2 of those teams are going to make the playoffs out of the 6. Last bucket, the locks, 4 locks. We have Stu, Blood Diamond Bill, O'Malley's, and Bacon. That's the finish 1 through 4. In this model, Stu finishes 11-2, Bill finishes 9-4, O'Malley finishes 8-5, and Bacon finishes 8-5. And O'Malley then has the points over Bacon. Right, yeah, Bacon's only averaging 117, about 118 per week, where O'Malley's is crushing it at 128. So, biggest winners and losers for this projection model, obviously the winners being those 6 guys who are making the playoffs, which would be Stu, Bill, O'Malley, Bacon, Collin, and then 1 of Weaver and Brad. I have Stu winning out, him going 5-0 the rest of the year, starting with his matchup against myself this week. O'Malley is going to go 4-1. On the flip side, I already said this, Weaver is going to go 1-4 in the next 5 weeks. Losing Mike Davis and George Kittle is pretty rough for Weaver's team. Evan also is going to go 1-4, and Scott is going to go 1-4. So those are the biggest projected losers with this model. So with that model, the playoffs would be Stu is the 1 seed. He would play the winner of the 4, which is Bacon, and the 5, which is Collin. Bill would be the 2 seed. He would play the winner of O'Malley, which would be the 3 seed, and either Weave or Brad, which will be the 6 seed. Some conclusions. So a team, these are the hot takes, a team with 6 wins will make the playoffs. This actually connects to the parity that we have in our league, and Weaver and I discussed a few weeks ago on the podcast, and I didn't think there was much parity. Well, fast forward a few weeks, and currently we are sitting at 5 teams at 4-4, 1 team at 5-3, and 1 team at 3-5. So those 7 teams, 7 teams are all within 2 games of each other. So a 6 and 7 team will make the playoffs. Currently, as it stands right now, 6 teams are still eligible for the playoffs. So that's pretty fun. Most everyone has a stake left in the season, and those 2 guys who are kind of on the outside looking in right now, they can still play spoilers. I mean, I have Max going 3-2 over the next 5 weeks, so he's got some L's to dole out. And then you all might be asking, Collin, why do you have yourself going to the playoffs? You just had back-to-back shit weeks. Well, in these back-to-back shit weeks, I haven't had my first or second round pick. My third best running back got injured, and Calvin Ridley got injured. So before you all talk shit, I'm putting myself in the playoffs. I am banking on all those guys becoming healthy. And for Mixon, Sanders, and Henderdog, they're all on a bye this week, and Ridley might sit as well. So, and the Falcons have a bye next week. So I'm banking on my team to get healthy. And there it is. So, Pebbles, please let me know what you think about that. I spent way too much time doing that research, and I actually am, pretty excited to see how it all shakes out. It's always fun to look back on your work and see how you did. And as we all know, fantasy is a harsh mistress, and so definitely humbling. So we'll see what happens. Moving on. So let's check out some waiver wire action. So again, checking my work. I suggested Pascal and Hooper on the last week's podcast. So Pascal, nobody picked him up. He went 3 of 6. He had 44 receiving yards. He had 5.9 fantasy points. Now, that is pretty bad and disappointing considering that his team was playing the Lions and they put up 41 points. Now I know in that game, Hines had a couple of touchdowns. Wilkins had a touchdown. Jonathan Taylor-Thomas is a big question mark on him. But 41 points. Pascal, actually had, 6 targets. 3 of 6, 44 yards. So didn't do much with what he got. Next person, Austin Hooper. He didn't play. Right? I don't think he played because he had his appendicitis. And then for this one, he was still healing with it. But Bill did pick him up for $1, so he's someone that we'll be keeping track of. He didn't play. He's on his bye now. So, coming out of the bye, week 10, he's going to have a big role. He practiced yesterday, so he'll be back. So, someone that I will be reporting on the next week. To review the action on Tuesday night, Pebbles, you got to let me know how much you would have bid on Marvin Jones, because I definitely was wary of your attention to him, given that Galladay was your boy and it went down. I ended up beating Scott by, I think, 2. Yeah, let's check this out. So we're going to, all the fab action we had here, starting at the bottom. So I won Marvin Jones for $11. Scott bid $9. No one dies like Gaston, bet $3. So I get him by $2. Marvin Jones, for all those of you who don't know, last week, it's actually pretty funny. So I dropped him like 2 weeks ago after he had back-to-back sub 2-point performances sandwiched around a bye. Since then, he put up 10.5 points, and then last week, 17.4 points. He had 3 catches, only 39 yards with 2 touchdowns. And as my team is all of a sudden hurting on receiver because I shipped DJ Moore down the river, Cooks I dropped and now is blowing up, and then even Mike Williams a little bit to that extent. I'm dying. So I put in the bid for Jones and I won. Next, Wilkins. This one is interesting, and actually as I'm looking at him, he has a fat Q by his name, which is not good. But he got 20 touches in that game against the Lions. He was good for 89 yards, a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion. The state of the running backs on my team, especially with buys this week, is pretty sorry, and I had saved my budget for an instance like this. In the group me I mentioned, I was originally considering going $40 because Scott has 39, and I was wondering if Scott would go big for Wilkins because he has both Taylor and Hines on his team. He ends up not. I talked myself down to 30, and even that was still $15 too much. So I get Wilkins for $30. This is more of a long-term interest. This week they're playing the Ravens, which is a tough matchup. And because my other running backs are on buys, I'm not expecting to beat Stu. Eric Ebron, next one. I can take more of you, Adam. Gets Ebron for $9. Pandulce bid 5. Wiedemann and Chovery bid 1. And then O'Brave Sir Dobbins, who was without tight end, puts in a tepid $0 waiver. So that one goes to Adam. And then Irvin, who is a Green Bay running back, one of the two, him and Dexter Williams tonight because Jones is out. The other Williams has COVID, and actually Dylan has COVID on their team too. So this is more of a what the fuck are the Packers going to do? Now, because of all the Niners injuries, you think one of these running backs is going to be getting some play. But on my way to the shitter, picks him up with $9. Evdog bid 5, Evdog of Aaron Jones. And currently he is on Scott's bench. So we'll see if Scott actually throws him in there tonight before the game. But with Michael Thomas back in that flex, probably not going to happen. Scott currently is going double Indy running back in his running back spots. So maybe he makes a switch. But with Hines scoring 2 passing touchdowns last week, I doubt it. I guess Scott's waiting to see if Taylor has some kind of update today before Thursday Night Football. So that was all the contested fabs. Other players that were added. Today, Pebbles gets Gage for $2, uncontested. Bill picks up Cam Akers. So I mentioned I didn't go for Cam Akers because Henderdog is probably going to be back after the bye. And even not, Malcolm Brown is getting all that work in that backfield. So I predict Bill will be dropping Cam Akers very soon. Adam Humphries is back on the waiver. Bacon's had enough of him, speaking of Cam Akers. Brad picks up Curtis Samuel. It's kind of interesting they don't put a bid on him. I mean, if you read his blurb, you're saying that with McCaffrey coming back, his rushing is going to be lessened drastically, and that was his first his receiving touchdown of the season. But still, no one bidding on him is pretty good. And then O'Brave Sir Dobbins picked up Jordan Reed to start. Currently is on the IR return. That's going to happen tonight, so we'll see what changes there. And then again, Bill got Austin Hooper for $1. So that was a waiver wire action this past Tuesday, election night. Pebbles, thanks for not bidding on Marvin Jones. Definitely curious how much you would have bid for him. But with that, we're going to get into this week's predictions, and then we'll get out of here. So first matchup we're going to talk about is going to be Stu versus myself. So like I said, I'm taking Stu in this one. This is the return of McCaffrey for Stu. So that in itself will be a boon, although what his work is going to be is definitely in question. But not only is McCaffrey getting back for Stu, Carson is getting back, and then Watson is playing Jacksonville, which is a great matchup. Again, on my side, I'm missing both my top 2 running backs. Ridley is banged up. I got to go double tight end currently with Hurst going against Denver and Cook against Tampa Bay. I do like Cook. He scored in 3 straight games, and on Sunday he had 7 targets against the Bears, so his arrow is pointing up. Something else that I like about my team is Chase Edmonds, the man who I tried to trade Bill for Diggs. Well, Drake got injured. Edmonds is now the guy for Arizona, so we'll see how he does. Drake is supposed to be back in like 2 or 3 weeks. I'm curious not only to see what Edmonds' point totals are in those weeks because the pundits love Edmonds, but I'm curious how Drake integrates back once he is healthy, and what kind of timeshare that's going to become. But I hope Bill is closely watching to how Edmonds does in this game, as he could have been his. Anyway, I got Stu taking this one against me. Next matchup. Pebbles and Scott. I'm taking Pebbles. Currently, Pebbles has not put a wide receiver in for Galladay, but he has Gage, who he picked up, so I imagine that's going to be the guy going in there. This one's going to be tight. Murray against Miami is going to produce. again, we'll see what quarterback Scott goes with. Well, actually, no, we won't see. It will be Breeze because Wentz is on a bye. What jumps out to me is Robinson is back for Pebbles. Fant is playing against ATL. That's a good matchup. McNasty, which is what I call Hasty. He's the guy now in SF. We'll see how long those Niners can actually run the ball because I imagine they're going to be going down with all those injuries they have. On Scott's side, CD Lamb is going to be playing with some random quarterback, so his game is going to be lessened. Although the Diggs, Jones, and Thomas stack for Scott is pretty nasty. I'm pretty down on Jonathan Taylor Thomas. This week he's banged up, and Wilkins was taking some of his work, so I think those expectations had to be, lessened for him. After further review, Scott has a bigger chance than I initially thought for this game, but I'm sticking with my gut and with Pebbles. One more thing on Pebbles' side is New England running back Damian Harris had a really good game last week against Buffalo, and now they're playing the Jets. New England, while they haven't been that good, should be ahead in that game, and so Harris should be getting some extended time. So I'm taking Pebbles over Scott. Next matchup, we got the Bacon and O'Malley matchup. So this one is my game of the week. My game of the week because O'Malley's been on a heater. Bacon just beat Stu last week, and now is 6-2 in second place. I'm taking O'Malley in this one. I'm taking O'Malley because Dalvin Cook just had a monster game. Crowder is back for him. Jefferson versus Detroit also is a really good matchup. And then Hopkins against Miami. Hopkins is going to go off. For Bacon, it's really going to come down to how his receivers do, specifically his number three receiver. With Sanders still on the COVID protocol list, Bacon's trotting out Traquan Smith, whose Bush is low. In the last 2 games, he has failed to break 8 points, so probably not going to do that much. Additionally, Devin Singletary and Zach Moss are in somewhat of a timeshare. So will Bacon choose the correct Buffalo running back? Currently, he has Singletary in there, even though Zach Moss put up over 20 points last game with 2 touchdowns. So interesting by Bacon. Maybe he'll swap it out between that game. I wonder what O'Malley thinks about that. Bacon currently is going double tight end as well with Hockencock against Minnesota, which is nice. Then Tanyan against SF. So we'll see tonight how he produces. But anyway, I'm taking O'Malley in this one. I think Jefferson is having a big day. Hopkins having a big day. And Cook has a big day. Interesting to note, Corey Davis has had back-to-back 10-target games, 22 points last week and 12 points the week before that. Will this continue? Corey Davis is someone who kind of was ignored earlier in the season. I think Max drafted him and then dropped him, obviously, as O'Malley has him because he had a few games, 0 points, where he was dealing with an injury. 10 targets per week since he's been back with a touchdown in each of those games. So we'll see if that continues for him. But O'Malley takes this one over Bacon, and that's the matchup of the week. Next game, we got Blood Diamond Bill, and we got Adam. So in this one, this is pretty fun. Bill is at 6-2, currently in 3rd place, and is someone I'm projecting to go to the postseason. Adam, 3-5, but has won 2 games in a row. Bill is without both Drake and Eckler still. And Bill's been riding the success of Jamal Williams the past few games of the Packers, but who will not be playing tonight. And after tonight, you think Jones is back, so his value is going to be gone. I'm taking Adam in this matchup. I like Roethlisberger versus Dallas. Obviously, Dallas is terrible. Adams tonight against SF. Adams has been going crazy. Jacobs against the Clippers on Sunday. I would bet so much money he's going to get in the end zone. Bill's side, Johnson is currently in the lineup, but he's been banged up. Lockett against Buffalo. It seems that Lockett and Metcalf alternate weeks of who blows up. Last week it was Metcalf, so it's possible Lockett has a big game on Sunday, but last Sunday only had 5.3 points. Bill's currently at DJ Dallas in there for running back. He does not have another running back option on his roster. So let's see. I don't know how many moves Bill's made this week, but DJ Dallas cannot be expected to perform like he did last week because Carson is going to be back, and Carson will be getting the lion's share of those carries. Gus Edwards against Indy, it's tough, and he's in the timeshare with Dobbins. Baltimore defense against Indy, that's going to be interesting. See if Philly Riv is more Philly Give, as people like to call them, givers. Yeah, I got Adam in this one. I think Bill's going to have a rough go of it until he gets Drake and Eckler back. Although Blood Diamond Bill is he of the fantasy defense. Bill has been 6-2 to this point, even though his team is only averaging 116 points per game. But I'm picking Adam. Next matchup, we have Max and Brad. Max is sitting at 1-7. Brad is at 4-4 after just beating Blood Diamond Bill. My pick in this one is going to be Max. Looking at Brad's lineup right now, we got a lot of question marks, especially on his receivers. Godwin is coming back off injury. John Brown has been pedestrian. And then Rodgers is playing a Thursday night game in a game you think the Packers are probably going to be going up by a good margin against the injury-riddled Niners. So because of that, Rodgers is not going to have to do that much. On Max's side, Wilson has been going off. He's going to be in a shootout with Buffalo. Mike Evans keeps finding the end zone every single week. McLaurin is playing the Giants, which is a great matchup. And then fucking Brandon Cooks is back in the lineup for Max. Yeah, this one could be tight. I think Max has a few boomer bust plays in there, but he's my pick to win this week. Last matchup, we got Weave Dog and we got Evan. Okay, we got Oh Brave Sir Dobbins versus We Demand a Chubbery. This is pretty fun. We got a Monty Python matchup going right here. I'm picking Weaver in this one. Evan is still without his top two running backs, Aaron Jones and Chubb. Not to mention that he picked up Breida to start, but Breida is questionable, and his coach said Breida has a chance for week 9. Which means that he is on the wrong side of questionable. On Evans' bench, he does have the correct Duke Johnson that he can slot in there. But Evans been riding high on the back of Gio. Gio now, his value is going to be gone after the bye is making way back. Ayuk has been having a few good games, but he's on the COVID list. So Evan is kind of looking thin in his skill positions. I guess fantasy is full of skill positions. On Weaver's side, he has Metcalf coming off a big game. He has Juju against Dallas, Kirk against Miami, who has been having some good games recently. I mean, the last 3 games he's had double-digit points, and the last 2 games he's scored 22.6 and 18.2. So Kirk's been a good pickup. Again, Elliott, his projections keep plummeting because of the quarterback play, and it's a tough Pittsburgh defense he's got going on. It's tough to have Elliott because you can't sit Elliott as your first-round pick. But, in the last 3 games, he's failed to score double-digit points. It's not what you draft Elliott for. However, Justin Jackson for Weaver has been really good. And against the Raiders, he should have some success. And the Pittsburgh defense against Dallas, too. I think 9.3 is probably too low of a projection for them with like a quarterback off the street going. So yeah, taking Weaver in this one. To recap my picks, taking Stu over myself, taking Pebbles over Scott, taking O'Malley over Bacon, taking Adam over Bill, Max over Brad, and then Weaver over Evan. I hope you guys enjoyed the Nightlord Prediction Model. I'm sure I'll hear about it in the group me. Otherwise, thanks again for Kurt and another topical jingle. At this point, we do not have a president, and will we have one by next podcast? Tune in to find out. All right, homies, good luck to everybody, except for, of course, the previous champion, Stu, and his Phantom podcast.
Week 8, pick 'em 8. There's money on the line in the playoff race. matched up against a chump, going head to head like Biden and Trump.